So I like to prompt this lesson and talk a little bit with the youth about communication. And so what are the ways that you all communicate? Or think about being youth, put on your youth hat at the time, and just type into the chat ways that we communicate and connect with others. Okay, so we can text people. Social media, we talk to them verbally, digitally, instant message, call them. Yeah, it's interesting when our youth say the words call. I'm like, do you really call people on the phone? Because sometimes it seems like nowadays our youth don't do that. Write a letter, yeah, the ability to do that. And sometimes those are the more meaningful forms of communication. There are certainly the ones I save. I have my two grandmothers' last letters to me. I've kind of saved those, and having their handwriting and their words become special because they're not digital, and so much of our lives today is digital. But oftentimes, what we do when we communicate is we do a lot of texting, as do our youth, and so we find ways of shortcutting the things that we want to say. So if we agree with somebody, we might just put K, or we give a thumbs up, we put an emoji with it. And our youth certainly do the same things. In fact, it's hard to sometimes keep up with the emoji. And for instance, my dad would always use the grinning face emoji, and he just thought he was really happy and sharing a smile with his children. And we had to tell him, like, Dad, that probably means a little something different. It's more of a gritting your teeth kind of grin than it is a happy face. So we kind of had to shift him to show him where the happy face would be. But what I tell youth is oftentimes there are things missing in the emoji library. And when you go to share something, it's not there. And so maybe it's an emotion that your youth have, and they're wanting to express themselves, and they look through the faces and they're just not quite seeing that face that really says what they want it to say. And then sometimes there are other pieces that are not represented of our community. And so for 4-H, what I often find is a lot of that could be in the rural environment, because maybe technology comes from more urban environments. We think of the Uber app is not necessarily going to be in a rural town. It was kind of developed in urban settings. So it would take a lot of effort and momentum, because we'd have to find the drivers and the passengers to be able to make it successful in a rural area. And the same is true when you see emojis. Is oftentimes they are not always representative of every part of the world, every part of society, and oftentimes in the rural areas. For example, let's give you some examples. In the emoji library, there are yellow tractors. Yellow tractors, can you believe that? Yellow. And some of us would say, well, that doesn't represent all tractors, okay? And then some of us would say green tractors, and some of us would say no, red tractors. And then some say, well, no, you got to go old school and go with the orange tractors. But those are not quite representative of rural areas. So somebody decided a yellow tractor would be the symbol for tractor. So it doesn't mean that tractor doesn't exist, but it's a yellow one. So sometimes there can be some difference. Sometimes when I look for different food, I don't see the food that I want to specify and text somebody. An animal, okay? For instance, a lot of school mascots may not be representative of the emoji library. But here's one. This is one I use a lot in my example, is when I say to my family, I'm going out to the barn to do chores, I have to type the words B-A-R-N, barn. 4 letters. That takes forever, okay? If I just had an emoji that was in a barn emoji, I could just put, I'm going out to the barn emoji and just put that symbol in there. There's no barn emoji, okay? So that is missing. So what we want to do today is think about things that might be missing, think about modifications to existing emojis like the yellow versus the red tractors, or other things that you think might be not represented. Now, I don't need you to kind of sort through all the emojis today to figure that out, but you can just kind of come up with an example that you want to be able to do, and we're going to be able to draw those today as our lesson. And so what I want to do is I'm going to share my screen on the iPad. We're going to use the Keynote app today. Okay, here we go. Okay, so you should be seeing that. And so if we swipe down in the middle of our screen, it produces our search bar, and then we can type K-E-Y. If you don't have Keynote downloaded, you can use another drawing app. Notes works, as well as Sketches is on some of the iPads. So you can kind of pick and choose from there. Okay, so here is what you should be seeing when you enter Keynote. You can see that there is the ability to create a new Keynote. So Keynote is similar to PowerPoint, but it has different features that aren't always there with PowerPoint. And so what we want to do is we want to, at the top middle of your screen, you should see a little plus key. That's going to open a brand new Keynote. So we want to hit the plus key. We're going to choose a theme. Okay, so we're going to select choose a theme. And the theme that we want to do is we want to pick basic white, because we basically are going to want a blank canvas to be able to draw on today. Okay, now you can see that this comes up with a title slide. We don't necessarily need the title slide because we want something that's blank. So we are going to go to the bottom left is a plus sign. This lets us add a new slide. Okay. I'm trying to do it on my computer screen like I do it on my iPad. We're going to scroll all the way to the bottom is a blank slide. And so now we have the blank canvas, if you will, blank slide. So I'm going to pause for a second there and to see if everybody's able to have the blank slide so that we can get ready to be able to start drawing an emoji. Okay, thanks for the thumbs up. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do is on the top row are different things that you can do to modify the slide. And so if you look at the one that looks like a little mountain and a moon shape, it's a picture, 2 pictures, 2 squares. Let's select that. And then from that list, there is the drawing on the menu. We can pick drawing. So once you pick drawing, and this is very similar to what happens when you use the Apple Pencil in other apps, is it produces this these tools at the bottom that you can use to draw and create with within an app. So today we're going to use the Apple Pencil. If your Apple Pencil is not charged, I actually forgot my Apple Pencil. And so I'm going to use my finger today for today's purpose. So you can, if you remember to charge your Apple Pencil and to connect it to your iPad, you're going to want to take off the cap, put it in the end of the iPad, and that allows it to both charge and pair. It should pop up a little thing on your screen to say pair. Now, if you've ever worked with youth in the Apple Pencil, you'll know that once it's paired, it only works with that Apple iPad. I can't take my Apple Pencil and help somebody else out on their iPad because my pencil's not paired to theirs. And once they pair a pencil, then that pencil usually takes precedence over using a finger or a stylus or something like that. Before it's paired, like today, when I use my finger, I can basically continue to just write that there. Okay, so we are going to look at this palette down below. Now, the left-hand one that has a little A on it, we're not going to use that today, but that one is, if we would write text, it's going to convert that text that we're writing into printed text like we were typing it. So that's sometimes helpful if you're using an iPad to take notes. You can use that stylus and it will convert it as you write it. It'll know or try to understand the words that you're writing. We're not going to use that one today. The next three in a row are different forms of writing. So the first one would be more of a pencil type lead. Then there is a more of like a colored pencil, and then kind of a crayon. Okay, so those are different thicknesses, different types of writing. So whatever the youth is interested in or whatever they would like to do. So I kind of made a mistake because this isn't really what I wanted to draw. So I can use the little undo arrows, the back arrow, and I can do that. Or I can also select the pink, what looks like an eraser. It's actually an eraser. And the difference with an Apple Pencil is you're not going to turn the pencil upside down and erase. You're still going to use the point as you erase. But I can use this for more precise erasing as I go. Okay. And as you select a pencil, if you hold down on that pencil, that's when you get to see the different thicknesses of pens. Okay. Now, I know those folks that are in Ohio, we have sketches on our iPads, and so a lot of times we'll use sketches. We're just letting kids free draw, but it doesn't give you access to all the pen types, all the brush types, and all the pencil thicknesses and pen thicknesses. So by doing it within an Apple app like Keynote, it gives you more access to that. So that's why we're using that today. Now, I want everybody to select the paint tube. We're going to show you how to create an emoji face. Okay, if you were picking emoji as your thing. So right now I have yellow in that tube. If I wanted to select a different color, I see that there are blue, green, yellow, and red. Or I can select this multicolor one, and I now have access to more colors. I can click the spectrum in the middle, and I can specify specific colors by dragging this around. And then the slider, if you are familiar with really graphic design and such, you can actually put in the actual color numbers or the hex color number, and it'll produce the exact color that you're trying to get at. But most youth will use the just the grid kind of colors. But if you select the paint tube, the cool thing about the paint tube is that's the fill. So it's kind of a paint, but it also fills what you're trying to do. So what you do is we want to take your pencil or your finger and put it on the screen. And while holding down on the screen, you're going to draw this circle, and it starts to do it as if we kind of have a string on that pivot point, and when I come back up to the top and let go, that circle is now filled in. Okay, so that would be how to have youth be able to fill things in. So if they're filling in an emoji face, that's how they could fill that in without having to, be coloring it, and making sure they don't have any gaps in their color. So that fills that in. Let's try something else. Let's change the color. So it's yellow now. We're gonna select the red. And so here's my barn example. I'm going to make a square this time. Okay, and that's not the most perfect square, so let me try, I can try again. Okay. Now, oftentimes when I'm working with youth, there are some kids that are phenomenal artists. There are other kids that are kind of a little self-conscious about being an artist. And so one thing I tell them is you are the designer. You come up with the concept, and then you hand it to a professional designer and say, "Can you make this pretty?" Okay. And so we are the idea people today. We are not the um, we're not the artists. Okay. And then I usually say, don't be intimidated by my barn and how wonderful it looks. I know you could be intimidated, but just try to do your own image. And that usually kind of breaks the tension because, as you can see, my barn roof looks like it's going to fall off. Okay. So then we can add other things to the barn. As an example, we could add doors and a little window. So you can draw now what you want to feature on your emoji and kind of create something. And then what oftentimes, once they're done with these, using your Apple TV, if your Apple TV is connected to a projector or connected to a TV in the classroom or the space that you're working with, and you connect your iPad to the TV, youth can share out their designs and share out what they created. And the way they can do that, so I am going to click done in the top left corner of my screen. And then anytime we want to share out on any app, there is the little square with the arrow pointing up. And so if I select that arrow and I tell the youth to select airdrop, then it's going to give me all the options of people that I can share that with on airdrop. Okay. And now there's nobody, obviously I'm in the Apple building and nobody came up. And that's because if you go to your settings, in your settings under general, your airdrop, my airdrop is receiving is off. I could do contacts only, but then that is only the people that I have connection to, and your student iPads are probably not connected. So everyone for 10 minutes allows me to get anybody who's in my proximity. And so then they can see your iPad and be able to do that. The other thing about that is if I go to the About section at the top here, you can see that the name says Mark's iPad. So when I say airdrop it to Mark's iPad, they can look and see and find Mark's iPad to send it to me. If that was a bunch of letters and numbers, like the model number or serial number, they may not be able to do that. And they will not be able to find me. So you can click the little arrow there and backspace over that and put in what you want to call your device. And you can change it for the class and then change it back if you want to, or maybe you have a device that you only use for teaching. So now when I go back here and I want to airdrop it to somebody, Okay, look at all these people now that are starting to appear that are within my proximity. So I could send them my barn emoji, and maybe somebody here at Apple will decide to add it to the list, or they may be very confused as to why they're getting that. So I send that, and then it'll come to your device, and then you can feature it on the screen. Now the caveat with that is once they send it, it'll pop up and say, so and so has sent you a drawing. Do you want to receive it? When you click yes, if your Apple iPad is connected to the Apple TV, it will pop up automatically. So before you start taking people's images, one suggestion is disconnecting from the Apple TV and making sure they're all inappropriate, or they're all not inappropriate, they are all appropriate to be featured on the screen, because as soon as you click accept, it's going to pop that up on the screen on your device. And unfortunately, I've had kids that try to be funny and then they pop that up, and of course then we have a little lesson on what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And usually what I say is, other people making fun of other people, saying things bad about other people are also included in derogatory words or derogatory drawings. Okay. One other thing that I want to show you that you can do with this lesson is you can animate your emoji. And so I'm going to just do one more thing with my drawing. I'm going to create a face for my emoji here. Okay. And a couple of hair there. Okay. And now, so what I can do to animate my emoji is I'm going to select an emoji. And you see how the word animate pops up there. So I can do that by selecting an object. I can also do that by selecting the paintbrush up at the top. Oh, the three dots, sorry. The three dots up at the top is also another way to find animate. Okay. So what we want to do, I want to animate each object separately. So I'm going to click on the barn first, and I'm going to click animate. So for the barn, I want to add a build-in, and that build-in is called line draw. Now watch what happens when I select line draw. So line draw is actually doing what it says it does, is it's drawing that as if it's following my pathway to drawing that emoji. So that's kind of a neat thing for youth to see, is it to be drawn as well. Okay, so that is one action. So now we're going to select the
Mark, could you
yeah,
show us how you're selecting that? What are you
yeah.
doing to be able to select?
Okay, so that's probably the piece that you can't see, is I'm just tapping on the image, and you see how it outlines it in blue. That allows me to select that. Or the other thing is I can do the three dots as the other way to get to the animate. Okay. So now I'm going to select the smiley face. Now, the other thing, that the word animate may not appear, and you see that little arrow. So you might have to arrow over to get to the far section to find the word animate. Here I'm going to animate, and I'm going to pick the middle add action. And this time I'm going to create a path. And so I like to do the path when I kind of tell a story. There once was the sun, and the sun went up into the sky over the barn, and then the sun set into the horizon. Okay, and so now that'll follow that line. That kind of animates the emoji, makes the emoji dance across the screen, and does that. I can also do, and this is where kids start getting creative, if you choose the right-hand side to build out, you can make um, the sun totally disappear, okay? And so by playing the little play button at the top of the screen, I can go through the whole presentation, which is essentially like a Keynote PowerPoint. I'm going to draw the barn first, because that's the first thing I animated. The second thing is going to be my path of the sun. And the last thing is going to be the sun disappearing off the screen. Okay, and some make it explode. There's other different ways to do that. Then it becomes a more of a video that you can export and send, or they can send you the PowerPoint as well. But if you think about things that you're trying to teach as a professional, and you want to write things out, if I were doing 2 + 2 = 4, and I wanted to animate that across the screen, I would use the line draw to kind of animate my whatever I have written with the Apple Pencil. If I'm drawing and illustrating something and I want to draw arrows to something and point to something, it's just another way to bring your presentation and your drawings to life. All right, so we are at time. Hopefully it gives you this. I find this to be a good icebreaker. So whether you're working with your team leaders, it gives you the opportunity to talk about social media a little bit and communication, while then introducing the Apple emojis. And by the way, it's not Apple who controls the emojis. It's controlled by Unicode. And so they could actually submit their ideas to Unicode, and Unicode decides which emojis to add to the portfolio each year. And so that's something, if you have older youth that want to do that, they can submit to Unicode and submit their ideas. For the younger youth, it's more of a chance to use the creativity aspect in drawing and creating something that they don't find available. Okay. So I use this a lot of times with my after school as kind of an icebreaker. The artistic piece kind of gets them settled down, and then I might shift into a coding lesson or a Spiro lesson from that perspective. Okay, so practice your emojis, find your missing barns, the things that are missing, and let's try to get things added. So please vote for barn, so someday barn will appear in the emoji library. All right, well, thanks, and have a great day. I know in Ohio it's the warmer week in February, so just get outside and enjoy some of this good weather that we don't normally always have access to. And we'll see you next week. We will be sending out the March and April schedule here shortly. So you'll have 2 months, but it'll follow the same 11:30 to 12 on Tuesdays. And we'll be adding some other professionals into that mix. All right, thanks, and we'll see you next week.